On a quiet farm in Bavaria, 6 people were brutally murdered with a farm tool. The killer stayed in the house for days, ate their food, fed the livestock, and vanished without a trace. This is one of Germany's most disturbing unsolved crimes. Welcome to Midnight Chronicles, stories from the dark side. In the early spring of 1922, the remote farmstead of Hinterkaifeck lay isolated between the Bavarian towns of Gruber and Schrobenhausen. The property belonged to Andreas Gruber, a 63-year-old farmer known for his strict and often hostile demeanor. Living with him were his wife Cecilia Gruber, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's 2 children Cecilia Gabriel and Joseph, and the family's newly hired maid, Maria Baumgartner. The farm stood alone, surrounded by forest and fields, accessible only by narrow rural paths. Weeks before the murders, Andreas reportedly mentioned strange events. Footprints in the snow leading from the forest to the house but none returning, unfamiliar noises in the attic, and a missing newspaper no one subscribed to. These unsettling incidents were dismissed at the time as rural paranoia, but they would later become critical details in one of Germany's most haunting unsolved crimes. On March 31, 1922, Maria Baumgartner arrived to begin her employment at the farm. She replaced the previous maid, who had left abruptly, claiming the house was haunted. That evening, the Gruber family went about their usual routine. At some point during the night, members of the household were lured individually into the barn. Investigators later determined that Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and young Cecilia. The murders went undiscovered for 4 days. Neighbors noticed the family had not attended church services, and mail remained uncollected. On April 4, 1922, concerned locals entered the property. What they found shocked even seasoned rural investigators. The bodies in the barn were frozen in stiff positions beneath hay. Inside the house, Maria was found in her bedchamber, while 2-year-old Joseph lay dead in his cradle. Evidence suggested that someone had remained on the farm after the killings. Livestock had been fed. Meals appeared prepared. The kitchen showed signs of recent use. This detail deeply unsettled authorities, indicating the killer may have lived among the corpses for days before leaving. The initial investigation was chaotic. In 1922 Bavaria, forensic science was limited, and the crime scene was poorly preserved. Curious villagers walked through the property before proper documentation occurred. Police questioned dozens of suspects. Attention quickly turned toward Victoria Gabriel's husband, Karl Gabriel, who had reportedly died during World War I. Some rumors suggested he survived and returned. However, military records confirmed his death in 1914. Other suspects included neighbors with land disputes, former employees, and even transient laborers. Andreas Gruber himself had a troubling past. He had been convicted of incest with his daughter Victoria years earlier. This family scandal fueled speculation about motive, jealousy, and revenge. The autopsies revealed chilling details. Young Cecilia had survived for hours after the attack, tearing out her own hair in distress before succumbing to her injuries. This suggested she witnessed the murders of her family members. The brutality was not impulsive, it was deliberate and sustained. No valuables were significantly stolen. Money remained untouched inside the home. This fact eliminated simple robbery as a motive. One compelling suspect was a neighbor named Lorenz Schlittenbauer. He had previously been romantically involved with Victoria and may have been the father of Joseph. Witness accounts suggested he acted unusually calm when the bodies were discovered. Some testimonies claimed he entered the house alone and quickly located Joseph's body, despite limited visibility. However, evidence against him remained circumstantial. He denied involvement, and no physical proof tied him to the murders. The lack of forensic advancement at the time meant investigators relied heavily on inconsistent witness statements. Years later, new investigative reviews were conducted. The case resurfaced repeatedly throughout the 20th century. In 2007, German police academy students re-examined archived evidence using modern profiling techniques. Their findings suggested the perpetrator was likely someone familiar with the farm's layout, routines, and the family's trust. The theory that the killer hid in the attic prior to the murders gained traction. Earlier reports of footsteps and attic noises appeared more credible under this lens. The psychological profile pointed toward a socially isolated male with personal grievances. Despite numerous leads, the case officially remains unsolved. Many suspects died before definitive conclusions could be drawn. The farm itself was demolished in 1923, and a memorial now marks the site. Over a century later, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of Germany's most analyzed cold cases. Historians and criminologists continue debating motives, inheritance disputes, romantic jealousy, war trauma, or family secrets. None have been conclusively proven. The cultural impact of the case has endured in German media and literature. It represents rural isolation, secrecy, and unresolved justice. The fact that the killer may have lived inside the house with the victims' bodies remains one of the most disturbing aspects. This element transformed the case from a simple homicide into psychological horror grounded in reality. Even today, it challenges assumptions about motive and human behavior. More than 100 years later, the Hinterkaifeck murders still provoke the same question. Who could commit such calculated brutality and disappear entirely? With modern forensic tools unavailable in 1922, key evidence was lost forever. What remains is documentation, witness statements, and unanswered suspicion. Some crimes fade with time. Others become permanent shadows in history. Hinterkaifeck belongs to the latter. This was episode 1 of Midnight Chronicles. A real crime, real victims, real mystery. If you want more deep investigations from around the world, subscribe and follow Midnight Chronicles, because some stories never rest. Stories from the dark side.